which iPad should you get? And is the 2021 iPad Pro the best one to get in 2021? Let's dive into it on the next Mix of Tech. Hi guys, welcome to Mix of Tech, where I review technology for the consumer prosumer, and I give my take on the things I see. With having a lot of experience between iPads since the first generation, I thought it would be good for me to dive into what's the best iPad for consumers and prosumers. Now keep in mind, this recommendation is as of June of 2021, and Apple will have a fall event that could change this whole landscape of the iPads that we have. I don't anticipate Apple to make major changes due to chip shortages and other things that are impacting the supply chain, and I really don't expect another M1 iPad to come out, mainly because they want to have a separation in their iPad lineup. So for my consumers, what's the best iPad to get in 2021? Well, first off, I do want to acknowledge that the original iPad, or now the 8th generation, is still a solid iPad for most consumers. If you're looking to do just typical web browsing and you just want to use the iPad OS, this is going to suffice. But I do have a recommendation for you that might surprise you, and I think you should look at the iPad Pro 11-inch. Now I get it, that's a big jump from $429 to $799, but hear me out on why I'm suggesting to get the 11-inch iPad Pro for consumers. I generally recommend for most consumers just to get the original iPad. It's a good iPad, it offers good capabilities, especially in this 8th generation at an A12 Bionic chip. Now, here's where Apple gets you, and they do this across all their product lines. They get you on storage. Now, you can pick up this iPad for $329, but the problem is it's with 32 gigs of storage. I think most consumers out there need at minimum 64 gigs, but I recommend 128 gigs. And so with Apple's storage, they have a separation. You can't just get a 64 gig. You have to get 128. Now that comes at $429, which isn't bad. So the big thing is on longevity. So while I do think this will last quite a while, and I think it's good for kids, I do think it's good for most people, you do need to keep in mind the accessories and other things are outdated. And what I mean by that is the big thing for me is that's still using Lightning. Now I know all of our phones, even my iPhone 12 Pro Max is still using Lightning, but most electronics you're getting in 2021 are using USB-C, or in this case, Thunderbolt. And that's something that I really enjoyed with my iPad Pros, and I still do. The other thing to be mindful is that the second generation Apple Pencil is not compatible. You have to use the first generation, which you insert the Lightning to charge it. So that may be a minor thing for you, but there are some improvements with the second generation. The other thing is, if you want to actually use this with the Apple Magic Keyboard, you won't be able to. It's only compatible with certain smart portfolios. So that's a disadvantage to you if you're interested in using one of the higher end Apple Magic Keyboards. Okay, you may be asking yourself, all right, so this is $429, now you're recommending the iPad Pro. What about the iPad Air? Well, again, Apple has put you in a difficult situation. The basic iPad Air, it comes at 64 gigs, which for some people will suffice. That's at $599. But I think if you really want to get to the appropriate one, which again, Apple gets you on the storage, you can't buy 128, you have to buy the 256. And that is at $749. That is $50 away from the 11th generation iPad Pro. Now, I really do enjoy the iPad Air. It's got a lot of performance improvements that are better than the original iPad. And if you can get away with the 64 gigs of storage, $599 is a lot cheaper than $799, and I get that. But bear with me, I still think there's a number of features that will outweigh what the iPad Air can do. Price is a consideration, which I expect most it will be. I'm not going to steer you away from the iPad. I do think that this is a good device, and you can get away with for 3 to 4 years without probably needing to buy a new one. But where I think you'll have an advantage, if you can spend that extra $200 to $300, is going with the 11-inch iPad Pro. The big reason is performance. The M1 chip is unbelievable. It is desktop class capabilities in the 8-core GPU and CPU that it offers. I'm getting specs here that are very similar to my M1 Mac Mini, which I do all my video editing off of. And you're going to have longevity just in the processing and performance capabilities of the M1 chip. And for the iPad Pros, I don't recommend going above the 256 gigabyte storage, mainly because then you're buying a lot more storage at a higher cost. And also that comes with more RAM. In most cases, that sounds like a great option, but iPad OS today is limiting any of the usage to 5 gigs. So you're not going to be able to take full advantage of even the 8 gigs that are available if you purchase the basic 128, 256, or 512. Now the 11-inch may not have the Liquid Retina XDR like I have in the 12.9, but it's still an amazing display. Comes with ProMotion, which offers quick response in regards to the refresh of the screen. And that's a big thing in comparison to what you're going to get, which is the 60 hertz versus the 120 hertz that you're going to get out of the iPad Pro 11-inch. You get compatibility with the Apple Magic Keyboard, you're able to use the second generation Apple Pencil, and there's a lot of other accessories that are now coming to the market. They're going to offer all kinds of other cool options. Now, don't get me wrong, you can probably find some really cheaper options on the iPad, but there's a lot of newer stuff that you can get within the iPad Pro lineup. As far as cameras go, you get two cameras. You get an ultra wide and a wide angle. You also get an aperture of 1.8, and you only get one on here. You also get a 12 and 10 megapixel camera on the iPad Pro. This gives you better optical zoom, and you only get digital zoom on the original iPad. This allows you to do 4K recording for video where you can only do 1080p. This also offers video recording at 1080p up to 240 frames per second to get that really crisp slow motion video. The front camera is significantly improved. You have a true depth camera that also offers center stage, which I found pretty good for video conferencing, and that's an added advantage that you could use this purely for your meetings that you have at work. One of the things that I found to be impressive is that you only get 2 speakers on the iPad. You get 4 speakers that have a great range of sound for a device of this size. You get Face ID on the iPad Pro, and you still have the legacy Touch ID, which isn't bad. You have Wi-Fi 5 or 802.11ac, and then you have Wi-Fi 6 on the iPad Pro. You have Bluetooth 5.0 and Bluetooth 4.2, which is an important factor, and I do suggest any device you really want to try to get Bluetooth 5.0 based upon the specs and capabilities that you have. It's better connection for a lot of your devices. And the big thing for me is you got Lightning on here and Thunderbolt or USB-C on the iPad Pro. It's a huge advantage, so you don't have to carry one of your, hopefully what we'll consider legacy cables to charge your iPad. All right, so for my prosumers, what should you get as far as iPad goes? Well, first off, there's different workflows, there's different deviations. I can't speak to it all. I'm an IT professional that does video editing. I think for some graphics purposes, you may be able to take advantage of the iPad Pro beyond what I can based upon the Apple Pencil and other graphics editing tools. But I'll be honest, I think for video editors and audio editors, you're probably better fit of not getting an iPad Pro and going with the new M1 Mac Mini or the M1 MacBook Pro. Now, I know this is disappointing. I really bought this with the expectation that I could actually have this as a hybrid between a MacBook Pro and a tablet. You're gonna find that Apple is really trying to separate the iPad between their Mac lineup. And so for right now, for my prosumers, I think it's best that you go with the Mac lineup for anything that you might need. And if you want a tablet, there are a lot of good options, but I wouldn't go out and buy the highest iPad Pro, get into a 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte, which does have the 16 gigs of storage. I just don't think you should be buying now for what may come out in the future. Now, I hope Apple does improve iPad OS and we get pro level access to the software and tools. But for now, I don't expect in the next 6 to 12 months to see Final Cut Pro on an iPad. So I've had the iPad Pro 12.9 for a month, and I'll say I still really enjoy it. The display on the XDR is fantastic. Contrast ratios are amazing. Looking at HDR content is just a huge difference from my 2018 iPad Pro. And for me, I like the 12.9-inch display, and that's why I'm still enjoying this iPad Pro. Now, my regret that I have is I went to 256 gigs of storage. It's $100 more. I don't think I'll probably use it since I'm not going to be using pro level type of software, especially with videos. So I'm not planning to have a lot that's gonna be stored on this iPad. So that's my only regret. I still enjoy it. Having the M1 crushes everything. It's more than what I actually do need, but the display is what really sold it for me. And I still enjoy it because I watch a lot of content. This also is a device with the Apple Magic Keyboard that offers some personal and productivity gains because I'm able to do a lot with this being very portable and easy to use across my house. It supplements what I do on my Macs, and it's a really good fit for me. I don't think for most prosumers, you need to go out and get the 12.9-inch. So I hope this video was helpful to you. And if it was, make sure to hit the like button. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to this channel for more great content like this. Thanks for joining A Mix of Tech.